everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you some mixed media greeting cards that started with me playing with my new Daniel Smith watercolor colors. I got these at Christmas time, and I was putting them in a palette, and then I was playing with this hot pressed watercolor paper from Strathmore that's already pre-cut into what I think is probably like a 5 by 7 size. Yeah, probably 5 by 7. Also, I had this new dagger brush that I was playing with as well. And I had asked for specific colors at Christmas time, and a few people got me them. Friends of mine and family got me them. Um, the green gold, the moon glow, the quinacridone gold, and the Payne's gray were colors that I asked for. And then the other 6 colors were ones that I purchased for myself to make a split primary palette, which I was watching a watercolor class on Craftsy. They had some free classes, and I was watching this one, and she was making all her colors using just these 6 primary colors from Daniel Smith watercolors. 3 warm primary colors, primary being yellow, red, and blue, and 3 cool primary colors. So I had this idea that I was going to make this split palette, which is what she had, and then learn how to mix all the colors to make whatever color you want. But there were these other 4 colors that are just really huge favorites of mine that I wanted. So I had them on my Amazon watercolor list, and luckily I received them at Christmas time. So I was using this little empty plastic palette that I had to make this palette. And as I was doing this, I decided to play with these paints and just mess around with some pieces of watercolor paper. A hot press watercolor paper, of course, is one that's been pressed with heat to be very smooth. Generally, when I'm doing mixed media, I use a cold press because it's easier to find and more inexpensive. But I had these pre-cut ones, so I decided to use them. And as I was doing this, um, this is what happened. I ended up with some cards. So we'll just go through the process and I'll explain it. Daniel Smith is a brand of watercolor that's very, very high quality. It's more expensive, it's artist quality, it's got a lot of pigment, and it's a real big favorite of a lot of professional watercolor people. So, I like colors, I like paints. I'm not a professional watercolor person at all in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I have so much to learn about watercolor that it's not even funny. But I like to have good stuff. And I figured that I would start collecting these paints with the idea that I would eventually learn more about watercolor. I've been watching people, I've been, watching like that free class on Craftsy I watched people's videos on YouTube about watercolor. I have friends who are into it, and it's just something that I would like to learn more about. The big difference between watercolor and acrylic, which is the medium that I most often use, is that you start with basically with when I do acrylic, I always have the option of adding light at the end because acrylic white paint is opaque, so I can always add it at the end. Whereas with watercolor, if you're purely using watercolor, and that's probably not me because I use mixed media, but if you were, you need to leave white space, which is something that I struggle with. I don't ever leave white space. So that's the reason that it's really different. Also, there's a lot of layering involved. A color will come out really bright in watercolor when you first apply it, and then it just, as it dries, it fades. And so you have to put another color and another layer and another layer. And you got to let them dry, and you probably really shouldn't dry them with a heat tool, although I see people do it. You should let it dry in between, maybe work on another place in the piece while you're doing it. Of course, I don't follow any of those rules because really, I, I'm a mixed media artist. I'm a collage artist. Um, who knows why I don't follow rules? Me, I'm just a rebel, just a rebel. But what I was doing here was just trying out the paints. What color are they? What effect will they have on this hot pressed paper? And at first I was trying out my dagger brush. As you saw, I was making squiggly lines with that, which can make like a fat and thin brush lines, and it was interesting. Then I switched over to using the watercolors with some Stencil Girl stencils because I like the patterns that stencils make, and it was interesting to see what these paints will do when you put them through stencils. Maybe you put them on really, you the first one I put wet down on the paper, and then I put the stencil over the top and put some colors on, and that did a lot of color blending, which I thought was interesting. But there was still a pattern left. And then the second one, I was trying to go through the stencil without the water underneath. And and even using a small brush to just go around the shapes as a second layer. That was interesting, a different look, still lots of pattern. And then this one, I'm actually using the small brush and not really allowing any of the paint to go under the stencil at all. Now, if you really wanted something if you wanted to use watercolor with a stencil without any seepage at all, which is not what I was looking for because I like the look of that kind of blendy, watery um, there's pattern, but it's not really obvious. You would use something like an iCraft Pixie Spray, which would be a stencil adhesive. Put that on and then press the stencil down, and you could do watercolor without anything seeping or very, very little seepage with that. But that really wasn't what I was going for. But this one, I was using a couple different sizes of brushes, and I was really being more careful about trying to keep it in within the spaces. This is the third one with the stencil that I did. And when I took it off, I didn't really like how it looked. I'd still got some bleeding underneath, and I thought, well, I will just blend these out, and I'll still have this pattern, but still have interesting, lighter areas, and that will be cool too. So that's what I'm doing now with this one. So this is the fourth piece that I've made and the final one that I'm going to make with these watercolors. But I definitely did find out more about how watercolors react to hot press paper. I did find out, how to use them through a stencil, and I did find out what colors I had. I didn't try any color mixing or anything like that. I'm going to make a color wheel or a chart, maybe a swatching chart that will help me to learn more about this split primary palette color mixing technique that I got to watch the class again. I have to find it again. I found it on my TV for free during the quarantine, and I don't know if it's still there or if it's still free, but I need to watch it again or else read something on the internet about this idea of mixing all your own colors. That's really what I want to learn. I want to learn about mixing colors with watercolors because that's something I don't know a lot about. And I think that would be beneficial to all my art just to know more about color mixing. And so that's what I want to do. So now I'm taking these watercolor pieces to more of a mixed media area. And first I took the stencil that I had used with that one piece and I took a white Posca pen and went around all the spaces on the stencil with white Posca. And that was interesting because it made the pattern of the stencil stand out more. But then I went a little bit further with this one and I was using some Faber-Castell artist pit pins, brush pins. I used one in kind of a sienna color, and I am freehand doodling and drawing over this piece without the stencil, but just making it more interesting. I also have a white Posca pen. This is a fine tip I don't use the extra fine. I like the fine tip. A lot of people, when I see a lot of people who are watercolor artists, use a gel pen over the top. Um, Purists won't do it because, of course, you're supposed to leave that white. But I've seen others who are maybe not quite so pure, and they will use a gel pen, but I tend to use the Posca pen, which is an acrylic paint pen, rather than the gel pens. Here in Arizona, where I live, it's dry, and the gel pens just stop functioning very soon after I get them. So I don't really like gel pens that much because I just seem to have a problem with them clogging or something very quickly after I get them, and then they just become useless and I have to throw them away. So this is a combination. That was a combination of the Faber-Castell Pit Artist Pens, which are India ink, and the white Posca pen. So then I have this first one back out, the one that has the squiggly lines where I was playing with the dagger brush and the different colors and just kind of, making interesting lines like marks that I like to make, which is kind of almost like a signature mark that I like to make. It's kind of a diagonal swirly line. I just enjoy that mark a lot, so you'll see me do it a lot. And I decided to do some collage over the top. You guys know I'm a collage artist. I like tiny bits of paper. I like to glue them down. It just makes me happy. And so I have a couple little trays that are sitting on my desk with all kinds of tiny pieces of paper. And my intention is to use all these pieces of paper up. I was watching a different YouTube artist the other day, Southern Girl. I think it's Southern Girl Designs. I think her name is Tiffany. Um, I'm terrible with names, but she was doing something with her tiny bits of paper that were all over her desk, and what was funny to me was that she has named these little pieces of paper giblets. I think if I'm correct, and I'm sure that if I'm not, you guys will correct me in the comments. I think giblets are when you get like a chicken or a turkey and it's the extra parts like the livers and the heart and the um the stuff that's inside, and you can take those out and make gravy or whatever. I always just throw it away because it grosses me out way too much. But I thought it was funny that her name for all these bits, these leftover bits that are just too pretty to throw away, and you just keep hoarding them, but they're everywhere, was giblets. So I thought I would tell you guys that story because it made me giggle. It just made me giggle. Giblets. So I'm using my giblets. I have tons of them all over the place, and I have them in little trays and things. Sometimes I go and I sort them into color and I put them in color boxes. And who knows what they are? Sometimes they're little bits of magazine page that I found interesting. Sometimes they're leftover pieces of a bigger piece of paper that I used, and then I had a little piece left over. That thing that I just put on is actually a postage stamp. Some of the international postage stamps that we get in the United States are circular, and that was actually a postage stamp off of something that someone sent me. I don't even know who or when, but I often save postage stamps because you know what? They're little pieces of art. That's what they are. Someone designs them, someone artist makes them, and so I always save them unless they're ugly. Sometimes they're ugly, but that's what that round thing with the flowers and the words. So I just kind of collaged up some abstract collage over this lines and mark making that I did with the watercolor. I trimmed it down and attached it to another colored layer of cardstock, and then I'm attaching it to a size A2 invitation size card. So the cardstock was bigger. I mean, the watercolor paper was bigger, and I ended up cutting them all down into a standard invitation size card because I have envelopes for that. And I had some leftover pieces, as you can see to the left here, and I cut those into ATCs. So at the very, very end, after you watch all the pictures, that are at the end, you know, the close-up pictures where you see what the things really look like. You'll see 3 ATCs that were made or partially made from the leftover pieces of this. So now I've got my other 3 pieces that I made with the stenciling and the watercolors, and I'm trimming those down and putting them on a colored background that I think matches nicely, and putting them into, you know, putting them on the folded cards as well. This size card, if you take an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock and cut it in half and then fold it in half, that's the size of the card. So it ends up being 4.25 by 5.5. And that's an in the United States. In the United States, that's an A2 envelope or an invitation envelope, and you can find them, you know, at the office store or whatever. The European A2 is a different size than that, and I don't know why. I don't even know why they assign those weird numbered sizes to them, but that's just how it is. I also have a die cut, a little tiny die cut that cuts out the word hello, and I have a small die cutting machine that's on my desk, and so I used it to cut out the word hello because I'm going to send these out to people, and that's just a really nice generic word to put on, whether it's a stamp or a die cut or whatever. I think a few weeks ago I made some cards that you guys probably saw on my channel. If you didn't, I'll put it in the iCard above, that little I on the right hand side. You can click and that'll send you to another video where I used a hello stamp, and I can't even remember. Were they gel printed? They might have been gel printed cards. I don't know. Anyway, if you like this video, you'd probably like that one too. So I'll put it in the little iCard and you can watch it. I always put things in the iCards, and at the end screen, there's usually a little link that I think would interest the person who liked this video. And I don't know how many people actually use them, but I do it. So, you know, you guys can always use those little links to find something similar to the thing you're watching if you really enjoyed it. I'm pretty careful to try to really pick something else that you would like. So for those 2 cards, I had this thing that's been in my stash of little bits of paper that someone sent me, and it had 3 circles on it, and I've seen videos and blog posts about making these circles. I think the person that I watched the first time I ever saw it was Cat Hand. Pretty sure I saw her making these circles where you put some paint with your fingers and then you maybe use something to make a mark that's circular from your desk, like a empty tube or something. And I had this piece of paper that somebody sent me in Happy Mail, and I've had it for so long. It had 3 of them on it, and it was on like a dictionary page or something. And I used one of them the other day, and then I had 2 left, and I just thought they looked really nice on those cards. So I glued them down. I put the hello on from the die cut, and then I made like one of my little squiggly lines to finish the card, and maybe some little splatters with my Posca pen. And I liked how that was like an easy finish to those 2 cards. And then this one is some more collage, and then also some more doodling at the end, using a piece of paper that was left over after cutting the hello out of the middle of it. So it's the reverse part. The other day in a video we were talking about masks and stencils. This would be the stencil. The other part that's cut out would be the mask. Remember I was telling you guys about that? So this is the leftover part that some might just toss, but I used it. I put some other color paper behind it. Then I'm just gluing on some other little pieces and parts that are around my desk and making it cute. So I hope you guys enjoyed these cards. I didn't film the ATCs that you'll see at the end because I was actually on a call, a meeting while I was doing this, just talking to some friends. And I did turn on my overhead camera and filmed this part, but then I thought I was leaving the meeting and I was going to go make some lunch, but I didn't end up leaving and I ended up continuing to talk. So I was, of course, as I do, working more at my desk because I can't just sit and talk. I have to always be doing something. I'm like one of those people that always has to be doing something. And so I had done the ATCs without the camera on. So sorry about that, but you'll see them at the end. Let's see, what else do I have to say? Oh, if you liked this, please remember to give it a thumbs up or to leave me a comment or both or a question. I usually get back to you with your comments and questions within 24 hours. You can, of course, use the links below the video and the links in the iCards and at the end to watch other videos or to find products. And you can share this. You can subscribe. You can turn on notification bells. All those things help my channel, and I'm always very grateful. So that's it for me for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.